If you own even a single HBAR, stop scrolling. The CEO of Hedera didn't just speak. He issued a warning that flips the entire blockchain conversation upside down. He flat out said, hashgraph doesn't just compete with blockchain, it surpasses it. Faster, safer, more scalable. And if that's true, then every HBAR holder is sitting on an opportunity the rest of the market hasn't even woken up to yet. If you want deeper breakdowns like this daily, join our YouTube membership because what you're about to learn changes everything. If you're interested in this topic, hit the join button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments, and I will give you a heart. When the CEO of Hedera looks directly into a camera and says, hashgraph hits the theoretical limit of distributed security while outperforming blockchain by orders of magnitude, that's not a casual statement. That's the kind of message that makes developers stop, institutions lean in, and everyday investors suddenly question whether they've been betting on the wrong technology this whole time. And if you're holding HBAR right now, what he said could easily redefine how you see your position, because this wasn't hype. This was an industry leader telling the world that the performance ceiling everyone thought blockchain had doesn't apply to Hedera. Let's break it down in the simplest, rawest way possible. For years, crypto holders were told the same thing over and over again. You either get speed or you get security. You can't have both. Bitcoin is secure, but painfully slow. Ethereum is programmable, but congested. Every blockchain has had to sacrifice something. Hedera's CEO just told the world that hashgraph eliminates the sacrifice entirely. No trade-off, no compromise. You get maximum performance and maximum security at the same time. And that's why this moment matters more than the average HBAR holder might realize. Think about what that means in practice. Bitcoin pushes about 3 transactions per second on a good day. Ethereum can hit maybe a dozen before fees explode and congestion becomes unbearable. Hedera, 10,000 transactions per second. And that's not future potential or theoretical capability. That's live, proven, production-grade throughput. The kind of performance that financial institutions dream about but have never been able to find in any public blockchain. The kind of performance that governments want when they talk about trustless record keeping. The kind of performance enterprises need when real-world value moves across networks. This is where the warning becomes crystal clear. Hedera isn't fighting for a spot in the blockchain race. It's quietly running an entirely different race with entirely different rules. And most of the market still hasn't figured that out, which means the window for early positioning is still open, but that window doesn't stay open forever. And now let's talk about something retail never pays attention to: structural efficiency. Hashgraph's consensus isn't just fast, it's asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant, a security level that reaches the mathematical ceiling of what's possible in distributed systems. When you hit the ceiling, you don't just get improved safety, you get a network that institutions can trust with high-value transactions, supply chain data, healthcare records, tokenized assets, and anything else that cannot afford failure. That is why the CEO emphasized it, that is why this matters right now, and that is why anyone holding HBAR needs to understand the depth of what he just revealed. Look at the cost difference alone. Bitcoin transactions can range from $1 to $40 depending on congestion. Ethereum, even casual users know a simple transfer can creep into absurd fees without warning. Hedera, fractions of a penny. Consistent, predictable, and stable. Not maybe cheaper, not sometimes cheaper, always faster, always final in seconds. That's not a small improvement, that's a category shift. This is the kind of efficiency financial systems require before they even consider leaving legacy infrastructure. And here's the part most people are missing completely. Scalability isn't just about speed, it's about how effortlessly you can build real-world applications on top of the network. Hedera already has tokenized real estate platforms, carbon credit systems, enterprise-grade data settlement tools, supply chain verifications, and live production use cases. This isn't imaginary adoption with empty partnerships. This is tangible integration with companies that have real customers, real products, and real global footprints. And that is exactly why the CEO is speaking louder now, because Hedera has entered a stage where ignoring it is becoming impossible, even for the skeptics. But let's go even deeper. One of the clearest signs of a maturing network is when third-party ecosystems begin to flourish. Projects like Gcoin are not speculative, maybe one-day ideas. They are fully built, fully functional, tokenized real estate platforms powered by Hedera. You can buy property shares, earn passive income, and participate in a new asset class without touching traditional gatekeepers. So whether you choose to invest in Gcoin or not, the larger signal is undeniable. Real businesses are choosing Hedera because hashgraph delivers what blockchain simply cannot. Now here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Most retail investors don't look at tech, they look at price. They ask if something can go up, not if it deserves to. But when the CEO tells the world Hedera can theoretically surpass the platforms everyone worships, when performance numbers crush competing chains, when enterprise adoption grows in silence, and when undervaluation becomes painfully obvious, that's when the people who understand fundamentals begin positioning before the rest of the market wakes up. Because the day the broader crypto world realizes hashgraph isn't just different, it's superior, that's the day HBAR stops being treated like an altcoin and starts being treated like infrastructure. The CEO's warning wasn't just about technology, it was about timing. Because right now, the entire crypto market is entering a phase where real adoption, not hype, not memes, not speculation, determines who survives the next cycle. And everything Hedera is doing aligns perfectly with where the industry is moving. People think this is about comparing Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Hedera on a scoreboard. It isn't. It's about understanding what institutions, enterprises, and global systems actually need when they adopt distributed technology at scale. And once you understand those needs, you begin to realize why hashgraph wasn't created to compete with blockchain, it was created to replace it. Let's start with the fundamental shift happening in enterprise adoption. When a business or government chooses a ledger for tokenization, record keeping, or high-value settlement, they're not looking for the coin with the best memes or the loudest community. They're looking for reliability, compliance, speed, fees, governance, and security. They're looking for the exact combination of features that Hedera has been quietly building since day one. And this is where hashgraph flips the script completely. Governance. The dirty secret no one in retail talks about is governance. Ethereum is governed by developers. Bitcoin is governed by miners. Most blockchains are governed by small groups with outsized influence. Hedera? Governed by some of the largest, most reputable organizations in the world. Google, IBM, LG, Dell, Boeing, Standard Bank, and more. These aren't anonymous node operators. These are global institutions whose reputations depend on trust, stability, and long-term architecture. When enterprises choose where to build, that matters a lot. Security. Most people don't understand what asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance even means, but institutions do. ABFT is not marketing fluff. It is the highest level of cryptographic security achievable in distributed systems. When the CEO said hashgraph hits the theoretical limit, he wasn't exaggerating. You can't go higher than ABFT. You can't out-secure ABFT. That's why Hedera's design wasn't an experiment. It was a calculated engineering choice to meet requirements that blockchain could never reach. Now let's talk about something that will shape the next decade of global finance: tokenization. Assets are moving on-chain. Not hypothetically, not conceptually, right now. Real estate, commodities, carbon credits, supply chain records, invoices, government certifications, corporate assets. And when those markets begin tokenizing at scale, nobody is choosing a network with high fees, slow settlement, unpredictable congestion, and governance controlled by anonymous actors. They choose networks with reliability, clarity, low fees, and enterprise-grade trust. Again, Hedera checks every box. Gcoin is a perfect example. A functioning, real-world, tokenized real estate platform built on Hedera, where investors can buy tokenized shares backed by real property. This isn't a dream, it's already happening. You can buy real estate with a token on a network that confirms transactions in seconds and costs pennies. And the fact that Gcoin is built on Hedera tells you everything about where real-world tokenization is headed. Projects don't choose networks because of hype. They choose networks because the tech allows them to operate at scale. Now here's where the CEO's warning becomes a roadmap for the future. When companies compare blockchains to hashgraph, they see inefficiencies everywhere. Bitcoin's throughput is too slow for enterprise use. Ethereum's congestion makes high volume applications impossible without expensive layer 2 solutions. Even newer chains struggle with governance, security compromises, or unproven architecture. Hashgraph is the first public network that solves all three critical layers: performance, security, and governance without compromise. And this leads to the question retail investors need to ask themselves. If Hedera provides a superior foundation for enterprise adoption, what happens when the broader market realizes this? Because enterprise adoption isn't loud. It doesn't come with meme coins or dramatic price spikes overnight. It grows quietly, systematically, then explodes all at once when the world finally notices that the infrastructure is already built, tested, and running. Just imagine what happens when tokenized real estate platforms, supply chain systems, carbon markets, global certifications, and large-scale institutional payment rails all begin relying on Hedera as their underlying settlement layer. Imagine the liquidity that flows into those systems. Imagine the transaction volume. Imagine the recurring fees. Imagine the network effects. Whether you hold 1,000 HBAR or a single token, this is where the long-term asymmetric advantage lies. Because the market can ignore hashgraph for a while, it can pretend Bitcoin and Ethereum are the only games in town. But sooner or later, adoption forces a narrative shift. And every major technology wave follows the same pattern. Ignored, resisted, studied, then suddenly embraced as the new standard. That's where Hedera is heading. And before we move on, remember this: the fastest growing networks in crypto are not the ones with the loudest communities, they're the ones with the strongest fundamentals. Hedera's CEO didn't issue a warning to brag, he issued a warning because hashgraph is about to move into a phase where ignoring it becomes mathematically impossible. So let's talk about the part most retail investors overlook, the implications of everything the CEO just said. Because his message wasn't simply, hashgraph is better. It was a strategic alert about where the next phase of crypto is heading. And if you understand that direction now, you're already ahead of 99% of the market. The real warning is this: the crypto world is moving into an era where only networks with real-world utility survive. Speculation can drive hype cycles, but it cannot sustain global infrastructure. The CEO's statement wasn't meant to spark price action. It was meant to signal that Hedera is engineered for something far bigger than retail speculation. It's built for financial systems, enterprise networks, tokenized economies, and massive institutional-grade workloads that blockchains simply cannot handle. And the moment the market begins pricing in functionality instead of narratives, HBAR's value proposition changes instantly. But let's break that down piece by piece so you see exactly how this plays out. Start with the enterprise angle. Companies don't migrate to new platforms because of excitement. They migrate because of necessity. When a supply chain needs faster settlement, it looks for solutions. When governments need tamper-proof records, they seek reliability. When fintechs want microtransactions at scale, they look for predictable fees. And when global tokenization begins moving trillions into digital form, the infrastructure has to be flawless. Hedera is positioned to answer every one of those needs. This is why the CEO emphasized that hashgraph maximizes performance and security at the same time. That combination isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. Retail might not care about this yet, but institutions do. And here's the uncomfortable truth: institutions control the long-term direction of every major asset class, including crypto. Now look at the tokenization wave that's unfolding in real time. Real estate, carbon credits, supply chain documents, financial instruments, everything is being digitized. Platforms like Gcoin are proving the model right now. You can buy tokenized real estate instantly. You can earn passive income through tokenized property shares. You can access investment opportunities that used to require mountains of paperwork, long settlement times, and high fees. This is exactly why hashgraph is so important. It removes friction. It makes tokenization not just possible, but scalable. And every time a project like Gcoin launches successfully, it sets a precedent. It tells the entire market, here's how you build real-world products on Hedera. It creates a roadmap future developers will follow. And this is where the network effect begins. One successful project leads to another, then another, until Hedera becomes the default network for any asset that needs speed, security, and real-world compliance. This is the beginning of that wave, and the CEO practically confirmed it. Now let's talk about investors. Smart money is already moving. Wallet accumulation patterns, staking activity, and ecosystem growth show it clearly. While retail trades emotion, institutions accumulate architecture. They don't care about hype. They care about infrastructure that will still be functional 10 years from now. Hedera checks that box. That's why the CEO's message matters. It confirms that Hedera's tech is not just good, but foundational. That brings us to something people rarely talk about, market re-rating. This is the moment when an asset's value is recalculated based on new information. Hedera hasn't had its re-rating yet. Most of the market still prices HBAR like a mid-tier altcoin, not a next-generation infrastructure layer with enterprise governance and ABFT security. But once tokenization platforms grow, enterprise adoption compounds, smart money accumulates, and performance metrics become undeniable, the market adjusts. These adjustments happen slowly, then suddenly, just like every major revaluation event in crypto history. Now think about the price implications. If Hedera even approaches Ethereum's market cap, which is realistic over the next few years, that places HBAR at around $8.00, $10.00. If it captures a meaningful share of tokenized real estate, financial settlements, or enterprise ledger systems, valuations beyond that are mathematically possible. These numbers aren't fantasy, they're proportional valuation models based on adoption trends, market share potential, and technological superiority. The CEO's warning wasn't subtle. It was a signal that the market is behind the curve, that most investors still don't understand hashgraph, that everyone comparing Hedera to blockchain is missing the bigger picture entirely, and that once the technology gap becomes impossible to ignore, the price gap follows. So here's the real takeaway. If you're holding HBAR right now, you're early, not late. The market isn't pricing in real-world adoption yet. It isn't pricing in tokenization. It isn't pricing in enterprise demand. It's pricing in retail misunderstanding. That will change, slowly, then suddenly. This is why now is the moment to pay attention to the tech, the adoption, the narratives, and the quiet signals institutions leave behind. Because the CEO didn't announce a warning to scare people, he announced it to prepare them. Hashgraph isn't competing with blockchain, it's replacing it. And the market hasn't figured that out yet.